Hey, and welcome to another edition of Standard Spike. This week I'm actually going back to Legacy after having just won the SCG Open in LA. And this is the deck that I played there and most likely will play again at the Invitational. I've updated it just a few cards, and I want to go over exactly why everything is in the deck, whether or not it was in the deck in the first place. So we have 23 lands, which is a lot actually, but in this deck we really want to have those. And we have 10 fetch lands, which also we really like to have with Top and Brainstorm. They are just huge with those two cards. You might notice a Mystic Gate standing out there. That was a Glacial Fortress at the Open, which is just there to help against Choke. Mystic Gate helps a lot more against Choke, so considering that slot is there specifically for that, I figured why not make it Mystic Gate. In either case, it's really not very significant because the deck that plays Choke, which is Maverick, also plays Wasteland. So really, that probably shouldn't be there at all. But I'm just doing what I see other people doing right now. Um, we've got 4 swords, 4 top, 4 brainstorm. Those go without saying. 1 Light Tutor is a new addition, which in the main deck gets O-Ring and then the counterbalance top package, which is great. Just to get those, it's great. But you can get O-Ring as well against Show and Tell, typically. So that in response to the Show and Tell, you can go get it, and then top to draw it, then put it into play, which gets Emrakul, Omniscience, and Grizzlebrand. Not quite as much Grizzlebrand, but it gets the other two. So that's what that's there for. And then on the board, we have tons of targets for that as well. All of these and these. So it's really a much better after board, but reasonable pre-board. We're down to 1 counterspell where we had 2 at the Open because the card just, in a lot of matchups, it's not the card you want to have whatsoever. And in its place, we have a 3rd Spell Pierce, which in my opinion is much stronger because costing 1 mana is huge. There's a big difference between 1 and 2 mana. Like you can counter things like Brainstorm, Aether Vial. I could go on, but just that's the best thing. The best thing for this card to do. And Counterspell is just kind of there, just to be there. But really, it's not really that great. It could just end up being the 4th Counterbalance, which is actually on the board. But right now we only have 3 main deck. Just kind of copying what I see others doing once again. 2 Snapcasters, 2 Click for our creature package. They just kind of act as a alternate win condition. They make great blockers in some cases, and they obviously both have great abilities in the first place. 3 Jace, one of the primary win conditions, and also with Entreat. Jace, once he gets down, you usually just start faceling with him, typically. But in this deck, it does have the added bonus of putting back these 2, acting as a secondary Brainstorm. Force of Will, Terminus, and Entreat, they both make up the Miracle package. Just very great with Top and Brainstorm. Entreat is pretty bad in my opinion, but in this deck you get to a point where you just have kind of 4 or 5 lands, and then Entreat for 2 or 3 is good enough to seal the game up. And since you have Brainstorm to put it back and shuffle it away, and Jace to do the same thing, the fact that it's a dead card is not that relevant usually. If it's in your opening hand and you don't have a Brainstorm, that's really bad. So in some cases it is just really bad, but I've never actually had to hardcast it, which is good because that would be miserable. Terminus, very cheap Wrath effect, as early as turn 2. And Brainstorm on top, it's just really, really good. And then for the sideboard, we have so many different cards that I actually had to pilot by card type, which is simple enough because a lot of the cards are similar. We have a 3rd Click just as whenever we want that 3rd Click for control and combo. 1 Explosives is a good Enlightened Tutor target, good in various matchups against tokens. Cage and Crypt and Surgical act as our graveyard hate. The Crypt and the Cage are tutorable. They both do different things, so you want to have 1 of each, I think. And the Extraction is the one that they don't see coming. So they all have a different purpose. Also, you can Snapcaster that one. They're all good in against various decks. Some of them are bad against some decks. Crypt is best against Dredge, obviously. That's actually might be the only matchup I have it for, but against Dredge, tutoring for that is pretty huge. The fourth Terminus, just whenever you need that. One Disenchant, because it's really nice to have one of that effect, especially since you can, snap it back. There's not really anything specific, except for maybe Maverick. Against Maverick, you just really want to have it because they have Choke, Sylvan Library. Sometimes they have Jite. I think there's maybe one other card, but I'm not thinking of. But those are the big ones, and definitely want it in that matchup. Pyroblast really helps out the mirror match. It's also good against Rug Delver, but it is very awkward that against Rug Delver you typically don't want to get your non-basics. But you're bringing in Pyroblast, so then all of a sudden you want to get your non-basics. So it is kind of awkward there, but in the mirror match is where it helps out the most. Fourth Counterbalance, like I said, it could just be main deck, but there are definitely some matchups where you want to have it more than others. Humility, coupled with Moat, act as our kind of just creature shutdown package. Humility, I'm not sure if it's better than Moat, but having both is probably just better if you can fit them in. I think Moat is better against Goblins. I don't really know what Humility is better against, but I know that just having both is gonna help. I might end up cutting that. Just depends on maybe some others' opinions or how I feel about it after I play with it. Land tax, good against control decks, so really not that often, but it is great to have one of. In the main deck, it's pretty bad in my opinion. That's why you don't see that in the main deck. And then we have Warmth, just a way to beat red decks. Not good against Goblins, but it is great against burn decks. And we have a way to tutor for that as well. So that's the deck. Let's go ahead and start playing.